All right, welcome back, everybody. So in this episode, I think what I'm going to do is explain how I went from having a crappy way of doing the coding to something a little better. And so I'm going to take a tour. And like when I started this project, it was really, I just wanted to understand it. I was really just playing around. And it started out like I just continued building on it and getting better ideas. But if you recall, what we're trying to do is I pretend this sheet is blank and the only two columns were these two. So the idea is I have my product sheet from my supplier and I paste in all the UPCs or the IDs. I still haven't figured out how to search by the UPC. So give me some time on that. But the idea is I want to be able to execute something and have it fill in all these columns. So in this case, it's getting the product information for each of these IDs. And if we look through here, it's the top category it's in, the brand, UPC again, different statistics, the historical minimum price, historical maximum price, on and on and on. And then I did, so let me just leave it at that. So if we start looking at the code, not only that is, so the first 12 or 13 columns come from the product info. And in this instance, I also put all the bestseller stuff. So starting with column T. So again, I called the first service that got me the first, 15, 17 columns. Then I called another service with the bestseller for that product. And I got all the information. And this has like some even nicer stuff like price increases, the rank increase, the rank going up, is the rank going down. So we can see here, this is the rank. That's the bestseller rank. This is the bestseller rank in the last 30 days. This is the bestseller rank in the last 90 days. So again, 90 days, they were 110, 30 days, they were 125, and now they're 51. So that's telling me that they're moving up. I'm not going to go through all of those because really the whole point I wanted to make was let's take a tour of some pretty awful code. Again, don't worry, that's going to get deleted. So one thing I did is rather than calling the web service every time, I just put the JSON in here. So I just saved it as a variable so that later on down here, I could just, rather than calling a web service to get this JSON, I just tell it that's what the JSON is and made it run a lot quicker. And I was able to troubleshoot things really easily. But there's not much. So here's my main function. And you'll see here, like I had one function called get product info. That's what fills in the first 17 columns. I don't know why I called these get and show, but show bestseller info. So again, once I have the product information, which gives me the bestseller for that product, I call the bestseller and I fill in all the other columns in that sheet. I'm going to not worry about this one. This is where I'm trying to figure out how to work with the UPCs, where we're doing a query, but I can't get it to work. Same thing, doing a query by search. But the thing I want to really point out is, as a software developer, when you start going into these things, and the moment you write a function that does something very similar to another function, you should really start thinking about how do I create a more generic function so that I can just reuse it for any of these calls. So we're going to see a similar pattern present itself. I'm going to skip this one because it's a little different than the others. I'm going to skip that one because it's a little different. But here's the get product info, and the pattern's the same here. I tell it, hey, this is our active sheet. I want a pointer to my products sheet. We're going to call something that sets all the headings. I figured that part out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through the product sheet, those first two columns. I'm going to grab the ID and I'm going to call set products. So, and here's what set products does. It just, so we pass it what I call the search term, but it's really just the product ID. And so the endpoint just becomes this. And again, I called it search term, but I could have called it product ID. But it's like I was copying and pasting code, which is the last thing you want to do. So I just left it as is. And then we just loop through some stuff where, okay, we have the endpoint. I'm going to skip through here. We call the API service. So we call the endpoint, it's a get, we're not passing any payload. This returns the JSON. So if you remember, in debug mode where I'm not calling the service, I just load the JSON, and here we're going to call it and get data. For my own purposes, I log the response, I get the results out of it. And then here's the tricky part is when I'm pushing the columns that I want to push out to the sheet, I have to like manually go through and look at the product array and say like, yep, I want the title, the Walmart ID, the date updated, the tracking since, and that comes from this thing. I hope, yeah, this is the, I believe this is the product stuff. So it's like, I just pick which pieces of information I want. And I could go a little deeper and get like, okay, what's the current prices? What's the historical minimum price? What's the historical maximum price? And I can't remember what I put in my sheet, but yeah, so here's stats. I'm grabbing a couple little things and like that's it. But you notice how it's a very manual process. And then when I go to bestseller, so here's the get bestseller, it's doing the same thing. It's giving me a pointer to where I need it. And then it's going to set the API. It's going to call the API service, get some data, and then I do the same thing. I go through this manual process of picking the columns I want to report out into those different columns. And then once I have all this data into an array, I write it out to the sheet, and that's it. So let's move into a world where things I think are a little nicer. So I made my my new version 3. So the first thing I did is tab 1, I'm just going to call source, and this all I'm going to do is put the 2 columns, UPC and ID. And like I said, this is what comes from our supplier. I'm not going to reuse this sheet to put more stuff. Instead, I'm going to have one sheet for the product information, one sheet for the bestseller information. I'll probably have another sheet for something else, another sheet for something else that you know has the same information by product. And then so let's take a peek at the code, because one really, we go all the way to the top. Yeah, I did some nice things up here, like in the global variables. I just, rather than in the function getting a pointer, I just get a pointer to every sheet. Like I know they're there, so let me just get a pointer, and then this way I could just reuse them wherever I need them inside. Source data, I created something called load sheet return JSON. So what this does is it opens up this thing and it converts this to a JSON array. So I can loop through it. Each row is a array entry in that JSON object. So that's all this is. So it's like I have all this stuff in memory to work on. I'm going to skip through some of the stuff I don't need. But I think the best thing I did is I created what I'm calling a manifest. And if we go down towards the bottom, here's the manifest. This is a really ugly to look at in Google. But the manifest is just a JSON object that has all the columns of information I want. So for the product page, so when I call the product service, it's telling me, okay, what column name do I want to put in my sheet? What API field? So if I look in that thing, it's called UPC. We're going to come back to title, so make note of that. So UPC. I added another option in here. Is this a calculated column entry? And that's more to come on that later, because some of these columns I'm just going to get directly from the JSON. Other things I want to calculate and say like, hey, is the 90-day rank greater than the 30-day rank? And then store that percentage in a new column. Like, so I might want to do that. And then I put a container in here to hold all the values, because what will happen is I'm going to call each of the 51 products, and every time it goes for product 1, it's going to put an array entry in here for product 1 for the UPC, and then a comma and the UPC for the second product it calls. So all my data lives in this manifest. The other thing I did is, I might see it a little lower. In some cases, remember how when we look at this, so a lot of these things are like top level elements, ID, title, UPC, brand. So it's like, it's pretty easy to get to them, just result, and then the array, like the item number. So in this case, it's 0 dot title gives me the title dot UPC. But to get the stats, I need to do dot stats, dot current prices, dot price. Like I need to navigate through that tree. And so you'll see, I built that into into here. And that's what I'm calling parent, child one, and child two. So some of these things are nested that deep where we need, okay, so we're going to look in stats, current prices, and then look for a field name price. I don't know if I have any in here that do all three. I think I just found a bug. I think, no, I'm going to leave that at 0. Bestseller, there's the title. So this model is needed because what I do and what makes this really nice, I can load data into the manifest for the products, load data into the manifest for bestseller, write manifest to sheet. So this is where things start getting really easy because all I'm doing is I get a pointer to the sheet. I just pass it the sheet name. I reformat the sheet, which deletes all the rows. I add the headings to the sheet, which comes right from that manifest. I put some arrays in here to hold the data. And then I just loop through. Is this the right one? Loop. No, I want to go to get API data. This is the one that's actually fetching the data. So I pass it the sheet name, the row, and a search term. I don't really like this, but basically what it's doing is like, hey, if the sheet name is product, this is the endpoint. If sheet name is bestseller, I should really pass in this thing. I should be able to derive that elsewhere. But this is a little shortcut. So it's just getting the API data, and all this does is call the API thing, and it updates the manifest values, which again is pretty easy once we have all the stuff in the manifest, because all it's going to do is it knows the sheet name. I'm just logging this out. If there's a parent, child, and child two specified, we say that, and then I just do some stupid little things. So if it's not a calculated field, I basically say, hey, if it's using up to child two, here's how you get that value from that JSON array. And just for giggles, that's how we get down to stats, current prices, price, or I forget what was in there. Same thing, and then if there's no child. So this is how I navigate that tree, and this actually works pretty nicely. The other thing I did is, okay, it is calculated, and I just started working on this. So I'm adding my own custom columns. Like this average sales per seller isn't in that web service return, but I can calculate it because I know the estimated 30-day sales, and I know the number of sellers. So I can calculate that. And, so I'm going to come up with more of these. I don't really like hard coding these, but for now, I might have 10 more of these. And again, I'm going to look at this stuff. I'm not seeing too, I might like to know how many, we see full rank history, how many rank changes are in this history. That might be interesting to know or not. I might like to know, okay, ranks historical, this is for category ID. So within this category, it has a good rank, I think. Within this category, it has a 0, which is a little surprising to me. I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe it's because it's too new. The other thing that's kind of interesting is if I look at the 30-day, the rank history, the longest time ago, it was a 30. And we can see it moved up to the number 1 spot, but now it's trickling down into the 2 and 3. So that might be nice to know. It might be nice to know, hey, is it trending up or is it trending down? Again, that's going to be a more complicated calculation, and I may hold off on that one. Here's the next category ID. So I might like to know which is the best category ID, or which category is it ranked best in. That might be nice to know because I might not be allowed to sell in that category. Yeah, so I'm just going to give some thought, and like I said, all it does is I just got to keep, I'm gonna put a hard-coded extra thing in here, and that's going to do it. So the other nice thing I did is I added this custom menu item. That was really easy. Quick little search. So when the spreadsheet opens, it's just adding a menu item called Dataspark, and I think they'd probably appreciate if I got their name the way it's on the website. Load data, and basically it's going to execute the main thing. I'm still working on analyze product data. That's the thing that's going to actually start looking at those sheets worth of data and comparing things and saying, yep, it's trending up here. It's bestseller, or the buy box percentage is less than 50. so on and so forth. I'm going to run this here, I think. Still a little buggy, but all right, let's just do it this way. So if I load data, I also have these little toast things that pop up here. So it's fetching 51 items. I'm only doing a handful of these. So fetching yeah, it's already just about done. I don't know why it's running twice. That doesn't make sense. Did I double click it? Maybe I did. But we'll see, it just filled in the products. So nothing too fancy here. I don't know why it's leaving these last three blank. I think these are my calculated ones. So, I mean, either the data in here is missing information I need for this product, or I got a bug in my code, and it's probably a bug in my code. If I look at bestseller, same thing, it's spitting out everything I need. And if I go all the way to the right, yeah, it's like, I do think that maybe this is a newer product and it just doesn't have data in these things, and that's why those things are coming up blank. I haven't looked at the JSON response, but it's kind of cool that you know, these are my calculated fields. Like this is telling me the price momentum. So is the price going up or going down in the last 30 days? Is the price going up or going down in the last 90 days? What's the average sales per seller? You can see no, those are zeros, I think. No, that should not be a zero. So I got to work on something here. But that's it. Like, that's where I'm taking this. So I'm going to spend a little more time working out the bugs and working on some more of those calculations. And maybe I'll present that in the next episode. Maybe. I'm really eager to get to the analyze part, where I'm starting to pick the columns of information I want to study. And, you know, at the end of the day, I want to be able to put 1,000 UPCs in here, click load data, and 10 minutes later have it spit out the 10 top products that I should be looking at. That's the goal. So again, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you back for the next episode.